Here we go. The name of this panel, guys. Kurt, you paying attention?
Sort of.
All right.
A little bit.
This is called the Rumble. And let me set the premise, and then I'm just going to let these three go, and I'll chime in every now and then. What you've got on stage right now, you've got four conservatives. Everybody on this stage is a conservative. I think there's no doubt about that. And in this interesting world of Donald Trump that we live in, conservatives are kind of all over the map on certain issues when it comes to Trump. I think you've got four interesting, divergent opinions up here with how the president's doing, good, bad, or ugly. So let's get started. There's no format. Let's just jump right in, and I'm going to jump in. Michael, I'm going to come to you first. And I want to ask this question of everybody, and then I'll be the last to answer it. We're almost 2 years into the Trump presidency. The best thing he's done, and not the worst thing he's done, if you were to criticize him for something, what would it be? Michael Gallagher, get us started.
Me criticize President Trump?
He's got to do it.
You clearly haven't heard my show.
I listen every day.
No, I know, and I listen to you every chance I get. And a word about the varying takes on this president that conservatives have. Because it's tough. Noah and I were talking in the green room about the challenge that a lot of people have to confront his style. This is a president America has never seen in the history of the country. The fighting instincts, the tweets. You ought to be in my shoes, or any of us who host a radio show. You got the things in your ear, and one morning a couple of weeks ago, my producer said, because I have to, our whole mission is breaking news and what to think of it, and his tweets are breaking news. And one of the tweets, my producer, Lance Anderson, says, "Oh crap, boss, he just called Stormy Daniels horseface." And I thought, okay, I gotta deliver this to a radio audience. But at the end of the day, there isn't a single day that goes by that all of us shouldn't be saying, what would the judiciary look like under President Hillary Clinton? Every day. What would the Supreme Court look like under Hillary Clinton? What would our economy look like under Hillary Clinton? It's not a close call. We've never seen conservative achievements like this in a 20-month period in most of our lifetimes. I dare say in any of our lifetimes. And so, even though his style can grate on people, and I joke about not criticizing him, if you listen to me, I made a conscientious decision. I figure 99% of the media slams him every minute of every hour of every day. I'm not going to do that on the Mike Gallagher show. I'm not.
And by the way, though Michael and I differ on that, I respect him for that. I really do.
I'm obvious about it. I don't hide it. And if a caller wants to challenge him, or that's fine, or a guest, but not me. I figure let that somebody else do that, because they're doing it anyway.
You do what we do. You got to be true to yourself. Noah, praise and criticize this president after almost 2 years.
I don't think any other Republican would have demonstrated the kind of disdain for convention, that it took to overturn decades of conventional wisdom and move the American embassy in Israel to Jerusalem. The belief was that this was going to tear the Middle East apart, and you were going to see chaos and war and famine and heartache like you've never seen before, and it didn't materialize. And we should have known that it wasn't going to materialize, because there had been a sea change over the course of the last decade in terms of the American foreign policy orientation towards Saudi Arabia and away from Iran and back and forth, and the Sunni-Shia divide there that had been exacerbated and created these new tensions on the ground that led to this kind of awakening on the Sunni Middle East that led to a thaw in relations with Israel. And anybody who followed this could have seen that and said, well, all these beliefs that we've been talking about for 2 decades are wrong. We should try something different here. I don't think anybody would have, except for Donald Trump. Second, the coarsening of the culture, I think, is real. I came up in the 1990s. That was my political maturation, was around the time when we had to educate our children about what fellatio was. Yeah. And I thought that was a real stain on the political culture, and I don't think we've gotten any better over the course of this presidency. But I do agree that this president has governed admirably in ways that depart from how he campaigned. He campaigned against an extroverted foreign policy. He wanted our troops to come home. He said, I could pay more in taxes. On CNN, he praised the individual mandate. I couldn't believe it. And he hasn't governed that way. And that's one of the reasons why I think we can all come home in a way to Donald Trump, with the exception of noting that the coarsening of the culture is real and very objectionable, and we should be free to speak out about that.
Kurt, now this is going to be difficult for you. I want you first to praise the president.
I'll try. Let's see if I can find something.
And then find a general criticism.
A what? I don't. Look, here's the thing. Donald Trump did something that I didn't think anybody could do. He taught conservatives how to win again. Right? How long were we put up this endless line of these puffballs, losers, weirdos, and freaks? Jeb, are you kidding me? This loser hung a medal for her adherence to the Constitution around the waddled neck of Hillary Clinton. That was the guy they told us was going to win for Republicans. Oh, hell no.
Hey, Joe, I wish Kurt would hold back a little bit, huh?
He will be our favorite up here.
It was all those tequila shots in the back with you, Mike. What don't I like about the president? I'm not going to tell you, and I'll tell you why. I'm an advocate. I'm a trial lawyer in Los Angeles. Yeah, I'm one of the good, like Michael Avenatti, except I don't have a $5 million judgment against me. And I rarely represent strippers. I respect people who have differing opinions about Trump. You do. Ben Shapiro does. I'm Ben Shapiro's lawyer. We're the guys who beat the Clock Boy lawsuit against him. Thank you. But I'm an advocate. I'm here to help him win. And why? I wasn't always like this. I was a Ted Cruz guy. I wrote thousands of dollars that could have gone to buying jewelry for my wife to Ted Cruz's campaign. But you know what? Ted Cruz lost, and I'm a veteran of the United States Army. One team, one fight. Trump won. He was the man. I backed him 110%.
And Kurt and I, we share the same philosophy about advocating. You know, we're not Edward R. Murrow. I know it's a shock. We're cheerleaders. We're fighters, and we want to win. And you know, some of my colleagues on the Salem Radio Network in particular, I've done a lot of these cities. This is like my 9th city in 11 days. And by the way, how great it feels to be in a room full of like-minded people. I just feel Americans. It's a great feeling. So thank you for coming out here on a Saturday afternoon. It means so much to us, and we'll all be signing our books afterwards, and I hope to meet everybody in person after this panel. But my colleague Hugh Hewitt believes in calling balls and strikes. I got to be an umpire. No, you're not an umpire. You want to be a winner. The umpire doesn't care about winners or losers. The one who roots for the team wants the team to win. I want the home team to win.
Well, you also want to be an evangelist, though, right? You want to win converts, and to the extent that mission is made harder, that's a problem, no?
Well, that's a good debate, whether it's made harder or not. I don't know if his style brings more people into the fold or chases people away.
No, Michael and Kurt, let me ask you about this, because to me this is the most interesting question. Again, I want to say this. There's no way in hell I would ever say any of these three are not a conservative and I'm a conservative. It's fascinating, Michael, because you talk about you're an advocate, you're a cheerleader, and Kurt, you've told me privately, and I love it, we're at war with them. I don't care what my captain does, I'm at war, that's the enemy. But when our leader does something that you think is wrong, like I don't know where you are in the tariff policy, but when it comes to policy, would you criticize a policy that he enacted?
Would a Democrat criticize a Democrat president on policy?
Maybe not. Maybe
they don't.
Well,
it's time we play ball the way they play ball. Listen, this crap about the course, I don't mean that towards you, Noah. You know I respect you, but it's crap about the coarsening of the culture. CNN called George Bush a war criminal. They called Dick Cheney. He ought to be tried for treason and war crimes. They've been pulling this stuff about conservatives and Republicans for as long as we've been in business. There's nothing new about the culture. The media takes no responsibility about the tone and the culture. They sit there at CNN and weep and cry about the crazy mail bomber, and they don't own any of what they do every night in attacking this president relentlessly and viciously and without fail. That's bull.
Noah, respond.
Well, I mean, I don't disagree with quite a lot of that. I've been a media critic for much of my career. However, my role, as I see it, when I sit on these MSNBC panels, I play the heavy. I'm the black hat, twirling my mustache, being the bad guy, right? But my behavior, my demeanor, is, in my view, an ambassador for conservatism, and my objective is to present a face that people want to emulate. So perhaps it's not as combative as the base would like, but the objective, I think, is to try to project a way in which a conservative behaves, a way in which I think conservatives should behave, that attracts converts. My objective is to popularize conservatism, and insofar as my behavior does that, I think I'm doing my job.
Well, and Kurt, I'll tee you up right now, because again, Mike said something interesting. Would a Democrat criticize a Democrat president on policy? If Trump enacted any kind of policy that you disagreed with, would you criticize him publicly?
Probably not. I mean, look, does Donald Trump seem to you guys like the kind of guy who'd go, oh, some guy on Twitter says my policy's bad, I'd better do a 180?
No,
It's not useful. What is useful is getting out there. Look, my job as an infantry commander was to tell young men, go up on that hill, kill everybody on that hill, wait for me to tell you the next hill to climb up, okay? Sometimes you gotta lead the fight. That's what I try to do.
The other part, Joe, if I may, we never heard this, oh, we've got to advance a good tone and tenor with George Bush. We never heard this with George H.W. Bush. The same. I believe there's another thing going on here. I've got some, frankly, good friends who are never Trumpers. And I'm not kidding you. I don't say this to be mean-spirited or nasty. It's a little bit of a derangement. It's so personal to them. It's so visceral for them. It's like he's gotten into their heads and he lives there rent-free. These never Trump Republicans don't seem to acknowledge the embassy moving to Jerusalem, the extraordinary judges. Never have we seen so many conservative judges that are going to impact thousands and thousands of decisions for many years to come. Back to Jerusalem. George Bush promised to move it to Jerusalem. Obama promised to move it to, they all promised to move it to Jerusalem. Guess what? This guy made a promise. It was a promise kept and a promise delivered. How do you not love that?
So we have a lot to be thankful for when it comes to the appointments to the judiciary. But we have to thank Donald Trump as much as we have to thank Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell spent 2015 and 2016 being hammered by the Republican base as a squish, as somebody without a spine, and he sat there and he held a Supreme Court seat open under withering public assault for a year, and it paid off. And then he killed the filibuster for judicial nominees, and it paid off. And over the course, and I've heard how Republicans always lose, right? But over the course of 2010 through 2016, they won 1,000 seats up and down the state, local, and federal level to put Democrats in a position that they hadn't been since 1928, all before Donald Trump came along and won the presidency. So it's not as though conservatives
Wait, Kurt, I'm going to set you up again, and then you're going to respond to me, and the crowd's going to love you. I accept that.
As you should.
Yeah. I don't care about Trump. I actually don't care about Trump's tone and tenor. I never have. It's all about policy to me, and it's about the issues. When he signed... Go back earlier in the year when he signed the first big, ugly omnibus spending bill. Did you criticize him for that? That spending bill that didn't fund that kept Planned Parenthood funding, that didn't fund his wall, would you, Mike or Kurt, criticize him for signing that bill that Barack Obama would have signed?
I didn't, because I trust him. I trust that he can he cannot fight this battle because he's going to fight the next one. Okay? He's a guy who, if Bush did it, he's going to roll over, then he's going to roll over again, then he's going to roll over again. With Trump, I know he's going to draw a line somewhere. You don't fight every single
Is he going to build a wall?
I think he's going to build a wall.
You do. You still believe that?
I think he will build a wall. It may not be the wall I want, but it'll be a hell of a lot better than the wide open. I think he's going to put a couple of battalions of MPs down there on the border, and when that caravan tries to go across, it's going to be stick time.
Mike, go ahead.
I always usually loathe sports analogies, but I'm going to make one. If you're a Bears fan, you don't sit around and say, well, am I going to criticize the quarterback or the secondary on this Sunday? No, you want them to win. Of course we're not going to. Why am I going to? Why?
But, Michael, I hear you, and I get that, and that makes a lot of sense to me. But again, if the President of the United States signs a spending bill that Barack Obama would have signed, doesn't that piss you off enough to obligate you to say, President Trump, that was a bad bill?
Trump's my guy. Obama wasn't my guy. It's really that simple. And a lot of people say, well, that's tribalism. Maybe it is. But we got to pick sides. We do. We do.
I love him.
He's my guy. And I'm fighting for him. I fought for him for 2 years. I never wavered. While people were coming at me saying, oh my gosh, you can't defend this guy. I said, listen, he's the only alternative to Hillary Clinton. He's who the American people put into office to do all these things. Of course I defend him.
Noah.
Well, I understand that. But if you want to have a presidency that you can be proud of, and you are, then when he veers off course, it is your obligation to say something corrective. No? I mean, you're nobody's press secretary.
So he doesn't do it again.
You're answering only to your own conscience. And to the extent that your conscience is bothered, as are all of us should be when the president says horseface, or when the president praises somebody for assaulting a journalist. No, I think we really should audit and interrogate our own consciences to see whether or not that's right.
A pulse of the crowd. No bull. I'm watching my language. Be honest. I don't care whether you thought it was a big deal or not. Raise your hands. How many people were glad that the president called Stormy Daniels horseface? Raise your hands. Schlichter, this is your crowd. Was it a good thing that he did that?
I don't care.
I know you don't care.
No. You don't understand how little I care. Look, this is how much I care. My First Amendment rights are safe. My guns are safe. My military has the guns and body armor and weapon system to keep my men alive. That is all I care about.
You teed him up.
Hey.
You teed him up.
Hey, Mike, let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Did I walk into that one?
You walked right into that. That was a wide open.
You said I spiked, baby.
There's a perfect story that Larry Elder tells frequently, and I'll share with you tonight. There were two golfers who asked who were asked, what do you find in the perfect golfer? Who's the best golfer? And the one guy, who was a Jeb Bush type, said, well, I look at the shoulders, and I look at the stance, and I look at the hips, and I look at the trajectory of the swing, and I look at how he addresses the ball, and I look at all those things before I decide whether or not he's a good golfer. And the other guy says, I just want to see where the ball lands. We like where the ball is landing with President Trump.
Well, guys, 2018 is not a referendum on the economy. Economy's killing. 2018 is not a referendum on foreign policy. Foreign policy is pretty good. No bodies are coming home. 2018 is a referendum on Donald Trump, how he behaves. And that ball is going to land in the rough.
Well, to that point, and Kurt, I'll come to you. Actually, no, I want to start with you because you just teed it up. The midterms are about 8 or 9 days away. It is going to be a referendum on this president. Are we going to lose the House?
I think it's hard to see that we don't lose the House. I think we might pick up the seats in the Senate because this landscape is very bad in the Senate for Democrats. And there's a couple of places Heidi Heitkamp is done, in my opinion. Claire McCaskill is probably done too. And she's advertising herself as not a crazy Democrat. That's your closing argument. You are over. But the House landscape is rough, and Democrats are crawling over glass to go to the polls. They've been doing it for 2 years. They've been winning in places they have no business winning. So if we see that happening, they're going to win the House. And guess what?
Michael.
They're going to subpoena everything. They're going to investigate everything.
course
And this
they are.
president is going to have to respond in a very combative fashion. And we're going to be deeper into the dynamic that we have now. And we haven't even begun to see the kind of combativeness out of this president we're going to see with a Democratic House.
Noah, I got to ask you a very direct question. And I ask this, again, with respect, somebody who likes your work very much. You say we're going to lose the House. Who did you
I think it's more likely than not, I think.
Who did you predict would win the presidency
Hey,
in
listen,
2016?
my predictions are as good as the paper they're written on.
So I take it that's
it's the
Hillary.
truth. You can discount it if you want, and I have every reason to say discount it.
Kurt, if we learned anything, we ought to learn that we got to stop making predictions about the electorate. We got to stop making predictions about the voters. The voters have the power that the pundits can't stand.
True, true, true. But we do a disservice to our listeners when we don't say what Noah just said, that Democrats are crawling over broken glass to vote this year. We got to get Republicans that fired up.
Look, the other side is motivated. They want what we have. They want our freedom. They want to tell you what you can and can't say. They want you to tell you how you can and can't pray. And let's not even get into guns. And that's just the start. Okay? They are eager to take back the power that they believe is theirs by some sort of divine right, by whatever weird weather spirit causes them to believe in the global warming cult. It doesn't do us any good to soft sell how tough our enemy is. You know, when I was in Desert Storm, we didn't fight a bunch of drafted farmers and broken down equipment. We fought a bunch of highly trained, superb Republican Guard soldiers. That's who we trained to fight. That's who we practiced to fight. That's how we did go and fight. Well, not me. I was way in the back. You'd have to FedEx bullets to get me. But you know what I mean. But you fight. You train and prepare to fight the strongest possible enemy. What Noah's saying is very important. We have a chance of losing the House. I think more likely than not, we'll keep it by a couple seats based on what I've been seeing lately, but I could absolutely be wrong. We could lose. So every single one of you and every single person you know and every single person they know needs to go out and vote for someone with an R next to their name.
Boom.
Joe, something changed during the Kavanaugh hearings. Kavanaugh has turned this, and millions of Americans, as Kurt calls them, and I refer to his book all the time, the normals. Normal Americans didn't like what they saw. Normal Americans don't like thousands of illegals who are marching towards our southern border. No way. And I truly believe with all of my heart, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. You could be right. I mean, the predictions could be right. I know that Hillary, I saw something the other day that officially, on average, she had a 77 or 78% chance of winning, and that's right now where they place the Democrats at winning the House. I like our chances.
Let's
very
talk.
much.
Let's talk. Noah, and I'll start with you. Let's go around. Let's start with this caravan. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14,000 people heading toward our border. To me, it's simple. You don't let anybody in. You turn them around. You lock the door. What do you think, if we have a situation in 3 or 4 weeks where we have 10,000 people at our border, what will this president do?
I have no idea. What he should do is close the border, militarize the border. But the problem is that's what they want. What they want are terrible optics. And they want to provoke a situation where you see violence, where people get killed. That's what they want. And if this president gives that to them, it would be an optical disaster. And I hope that's not what happens. But they have to understand that that's the trap they're trying to set.
Mike, what should this president do?
Well, we and Noah's right in terms of the optics. So much of this is optics. Let's look at what happened with this mail bomber. There were some bad optics when a lot of people in my world immediately said, oh, this is a Democrat hoax. And I said on air, no, let's not go down that path. Let's not go down that road. You start going down that path, you're giving them ammunition. You're giving the other side an opportunity to come back at us if it does turn out to be some crazed, evil Trump supporter, which it turned out to be, then we're losing votes. This is all about votes. This is all about getting every single undecided to the polls. And so we do have to be careful of the optics. On the other hand, no one likes the optics of 14,000 people storming across the southern border and entering the United States, and that's going to be a losing proposition for the Democrats.
Okay. You don't have a country if you don't have a border, period.
Amen.
Now, this garbage about conservatives being anti-immigrant, my beautiful wife over there, she's the one in that hot black dress, came from Cuba. driven out by Castro's thugs. Her father served in the United States military. Her brother served in the United States military. She held my daughter while I went overseas for 16 months. Jackie was, 6 months old? We are immigrants, and we support immigrants. That being said, this is our country, and damn it, I will choose who comes into my country, not them.
See, and no, I'm coming to you. Kurt, that's why I think, and I know the optics, but if 14,000 people show up at our border and Trump is tough and we don't let a damn one of them in, I don't think that hurts us.
Not
I
at
don't
all.
think the optics hurt.
No, that's what he's supposed to do.
Bingo.
Are you going to enforce the law or not? Sometimes, if the bad guys push you, and you're the bad guy if you're violating our laws, it's ugly. The optics will be bad. But I think the American people will figure out, well, they didn't have to rush across the border into our police and into our military. They didn't have to. They chose to, and, well, that's what happens.
Noah.
And it's different this time. I'm sorry, Noah. It's different this time, though. Remember when all the optics were the babies being pulled from the parents, and they were winning on that. It's different this time. Somehow, you're not hearing the kind of sympathy. The Democrats have gone dead silent.
They don't
on
even
this.
talk about it.
They don't want to talk about it, Joe, because they know the American people are saying, no, not this time. Not 15, 18, 20,000 people. No way. It's not going to work this time.
You mentioned the bomber, and I wanted to bring that up because electoral politics is critical. But there are things that are more important than the next election. Posterity matters. Conservatives take the 30,000-foot view. They take the long view. And it does matter that we're seeing rhetorical arms races escalate to a point that I think radicalizes deranged people. We got a lot of dismissive blowing off from Democrats when a lot of Republicans were targeted for assassination. And as a result of, I think, frankly, extremely overheated rhetoric on the part of liberals who pay nominal homage to a militant insurgency by calling themselves the resistance. Well, reciprocity works the same way, too. Republicans have a lot of rhetorical overreach, and there are deranged people who can be radicalized by that, and all of us are responsible for taking the temperature down, all of us with a microphone.
There's nothing wrong with that, but incidentally, as we talk about this horrific, evil, cowardly act today in Pittsburgh, 10 people were killed, and may we all keep those families and that community in our hearts and our thoughts and our minds today, because they're reeling from this awful, and many.
By the way, is everybody aware of that?
You may not be aware of it.
A synagogue outside of Pittsburgh, a deranged anti-Semite walked into a synagogue this morning, shot and killed 10 people in services in synagogue.
Three police officers shot. I don't believe any fatalities, but 10 members of the synagogue shot and killed. Now, there is real evil. There is palpable, true evil in the world. I saw a report moments before coming on stage, because we're all looking at our phones and trying to find out what happened. I don't know if this is accurate. It came from a good source as they study and scour this cowardly evil's doer's social media. There was a report that he hated Trump, that he was anti-Trump. He thought that Trump was controlled by the Jews.
He thought Trump was controlled by the Jews. He hated Jews. He hates Jews.
So we know that the guy in Florida was a Trump supporter, and CNN isn't wasting 1 minute of airtime blaming the mail bombing on President Trump because of that. Following that twisted, goofy logic, do we now say that if the guy in Pittsburgh today who slaughtered 10 innocent people hated Trump, does that mean that he was fed by the anti-Trump hatred of CNN and MSNBC? And do we blame CNN and MSNBC and Democrats who have vilified Trump? Of course we don't, guys. Of course we don't. Normal, common sense people say evil people do evil things, and it doesn't matter what their political party is.
And
come on.
Michael, you're right. And shouldn't the president stand up and say something just like that? Should this president not make some sort of an effort, and anybody can answer this, because this thing, Noah, as you say, this thing's ratcheting up.
He's been good today, but I fear for what his reaction is tomorrow, because his response to the bombing was, did you call President Clinton, did you call Barack Obama to express some sort of sympathy for their condition? They were targeted for assassination. And he said, no, my people wanted me to, but I'm not going to. And also, I could take this temperature up if I wanted to. The media's been very unfair to me. That's just the wrong tone to take. It's the kind of behavior that I wouldn't want my kids to emulate.
Well, you know, and we have Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer essentially blaming Donald Trump for this in their message. Now, if they all wanted to get together on the South Lawn, arm in arm, hand in hand, say, hey, we're all united against this, that's fine.
Yeah, but
I'm
Pelosi and
not
Schumer suck. Kurt, don't you want Trump to be better? Pelosi
No, I don't
and
care if
Schumer
Trump
suck.
is better. It isn't Trump's fault. Trump didn't do it.
I know it's not his fault.
And I don't think that there's anything he can do about it unless the other side decides to dance too. It takes two to tango.
Oh.
Are we going to have a country where we agree with the foundation of the founders, or are we going to decide things in a different way? You can't, you have to have people agree on that.
He's the president of the United States. How about he rise above all the partisan crap right now?
I'm sick of rising above, Joe.
No, God, no. Rise above it with
doesn't
strength.
work.
Rise above it and wear boots,
We
whatever.
rose above with George Bush. We rose above with John McCain.
No,
we
no,
rose
no.
above with Mitt Romney, and we ended up with Barack Obama and right here.
Okay, then don't say rise above. Then fine. Screw that. Then don't rise above, but be the president of the United States, and before more people get killed, just stand in front of the whole country and say, country, lower the temperature. All of us. How about he say something like that?
Well, he is. He largely is when he says the media has treated me very unfairly. There's nobody in this room that disputes that, Joe. Do you think the media's treated him fairly?
Yes, but he's talking to you and I.
No,
he's talking to half the country,
No, he's
Michael.
not. He's talking to the people. Listen,
Like,
here's a definition.
He threatened us.
Here's a
He said, I'm going to raise the temperature.
Here's a definition of insanity. Definition of insanity is the same behavior gets repeated over and over again. We sit around and expect a different outcome. I love it how you guys are shocked that he pushes
shocked.
back.
Nobody's shocked.
And then you sit and say, well, let's tell him how to do this. Here's what amuses me. We're going to tell this guy who beat 16 of the finest Republican candidates in the history of America and beat them like a drum, who has brilliantly figured out how to become president, who has achieved all of these accomplishments. We're going to tell him how to do his job, Joe?
Hell yes, that's my job. Hell yes.
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Yes, the United States people are going to tell the president what they're supposed to do.
Wait, I forgot. Noah, before you jump in, I forgot. This isn't a democracy. I can't say what I feel. Hell yes, I'm going to tell him to improve. That's my God-given right. That's your God-given right. I want him to succeed. Go ahead.
Yes, the president of the United States is our employee. We absolutely have the right to tell him what to do and how to do it.
I get that he works for us, but in the analogy, first of all, take all the rules, all those rules, throw them out the damn window because he doesn't follow any rules. This is not a typical president. We all get that. But I do say the analogy is a little bit like a listener telling you, Joe, this is how you need to do a talk show. You'd say, wait a minute, I know how to do a talk show. I'm good at it. It's like somebody telling you, Noah, here's how you write a column. You say, I know how to write a column. I'm good at it. Listen, he's good at what he's doing. He's winning, guys.
Mike.
He's winning.
Noah, you and I are going to have to be ushered out of here. If somebody called into my show and said, Joe, you were lousy yesterday. Your point on, and by the way, they do this all the time. I hated what you said about Trump. You could have done it a lot better. That's his right to say, and I'd listen to him.
Oh, you
Go
have
ahead.
a right to say you don't like the tone, and you certainly have we have a God-given right to say I don't like the way he's doing his job. I just find it kind of clever, don't you, Kurt, that amusing that some of us say, here's how you should do your job better. I think he's doing his job pretty darn well.
How many, Kurt, before you go.
The fact is, though, people tell us how to do our job every day.
All the time.
Right? I mean,
and you don't like it.
How many.
Sometimes
Kurt,
they have some good criticism.
Yes or no question. Mike, do you want this president to succeed?
Heck yes.
Noah, do you want this president to succeed?
Of course I do.
Kurt.
He's already succeeding. I'm psyched.
I'm trying to just bring a little bit of perspective, and yes, I want him to succeed too. What the four of us are rumbling about is how to best try to, from our own perspective, make sure he succeeds. That's all. Kurt, you were
there's nothing wrong with criticizing the president. I think that people who are not advocates have a role. And I think that we are eventually going to have a president, hopefully in 6 years, who is not Donald Trump and does not have Donald Trump's ability to win against the odds and to frankly defy the elite so completely as Donald Trump has. As you know, for years, we've had Republicans who are more concerned with their reputations inside Washington than keeping the promises that they made to us.
Hey, you wrote a book about this, but Mike, I'm going to start with you. I want a short answer for everybody. Why did Trump win? Why did he win in 2016?
He tapped into the anti-establishment disgust that millions of Americans had with the way things were being done. They didn't want business as usual.
Noah, why did Donald Trump win?
Honest, this is going to make me even more popular with this crowd. He faced an opponent who was the worst candidate for the presidency ever to run for the White House in the 20th century, 21st century, yeah.
Kurt, why did Trump win?
Donald Trump won because for years and years and years, we've had an elite that presumed to rule over us, that did a terrible job. Iraq, the 2008 collapse, Obamacare, it's failure after failure. They refuse to have any kind of accountability. And then, compounding it, they presume to look down on us? Oh, hell no.
Do you see why I'm in love with him? I think it's simple. I think
I
Trump
thought it was my smile.
I think Trump won because the country said, damn it, if you're a country, you have to have a border. If you have a border, you got to secure the border. Michael, coming right back to you again around, how has he changed the Republican Party?
He's changed it dramatically, but by the way, to the point about why we love Kurt, I was reading on the airplane the Twitter feed, and I saw one of Kurt's tweets, and somebody had taken him to task. A pretty nasty thing, and Kurt wrote back, and he said, I thank you very much for that reasonable position. Let me now offer a reasonable position back to you. Blank you. That's Colonel Schlichter. So, it kind
You
of
got to follow him.
kind of ties into the answer. Trump taught the Republicans how to fight again. We haven't been fighting for many years, for decades. John McCain wouldn't bring up Jeremiah Wright. You know, Mitt Romney wanted to be above board and take the higher ground. Listen, sometimes taking the higher ground gets you killed. And we're winning, and we're battling. And Republicans now, there are people coming to the Republican Party, Joe, who never dreamed of becoming registered Republicans, but they like what this guy's doing.
Noah, not to make you more unpopular with this crowd, but to either agree with or dispute Gallagher's point. Because of Trump, is the party growing?
I just frankly haven't seen that in the data. We've seen Republican registration decline, and we've seen Democratic registration decline too. We've seen party registration decline across the board, but I don't think we've seen an increase in registration.
Let's talk the morning of November 7th. And let's find out how it
Well, that has nothing to do with party registration. Either you're registered or you're not.
Well, it has to do with enthusiasm for Republican candidates, you know. And I think there'd be a lot of Democrats who are going to cross the aisle and vote for Republicans because they don't like the way the country's been going.
Look, they
like
really should.
Kurt,
Because
do you believe, to Mike's point, that there is this undercurrent of people who will always support Trump, but they won't say it? So the polls never measure them.
Yes, I think that there are a lot of people. I read about it in my book. We're in Los Angeles. We're talking to this other couple, and the wife's going on and on about how horrible Trump is. And I look over at the husband, and he just gets one of these. And I'm like, okay, Trump can win.
Do you feel pretty confident about the midterms?
I do.
You do, really,
I
Mike.
feel great about them. I didn't prior to the Kavanaugh hearings. I really was very concerned about the House. I always felt confident we'd keep the Senate. Now, I think we're going to win. I think we're going to win barely, but I believe we're going to win. And we're going to keep fighting to win. We got to fight every day. We got 9 days. Right? Get everybody out to vote.
Hey, Noah, again, we're all conservatives.
By the way, can I tell you real quick why?
Yeah.
Dan Balls, who is respected as
Washington
one of the dean
Post.
of political writers of the Washington Post. He reported this week, based on the latest Washington Post polling, that Democrats hold a statistically insignificant lead right now over Republicans in the key House races.
Right.
That's
But
their
here's the
data.
deal, before you
There's
all
data.
cheer, guys. We know for a fact Democrats are going to vote for a midterm in record numbers. We win if we vote. We know Democrats are coming out. Noah, conservatism. You write about conservatism a lot. What's Trump done for or to conservatism?
I agree with Mike that I think he's injected a kind of fire in the belly that Republicans did not evince. in part because they live in a part of the country that is generally hostile towards conservatism. And I thought what you saw in the Kavanaugh hearings in particular was absolutely remarkable. First of all, Donald Trump receded into the background for 2 weeks. I don't know where he went. But what you saw were people like Lindsey Graham and Orrin Hatch and Ben Sass being livid,
Ben Sass?
absolutely furious over
he
how
was
they were
AWOL.
treated. I watched every minute of those hearings, man, and he was as angry as I was. And I have no love lost for the president's behavior, but what they did to Judge Kavanaugh was an absolute disgrace. And you saw how Democrats are going to govern in the majority, if they get the majority. And we should all be afraid of that. And that's why anybody who puts a bullet in the gun of the Democratic Party is doing a real disservice to the country. And that's why I fear when Donald Trump behaves in a reckless fashion, because it makes their job easier.
You and Mr. Gallagher believe, and I agree, I concur, that the greatest thing about Trump is he's taught Republicans how to fight. He's taught conservatives how to fight. Has he changed conservatism, though? Put the fighting aside, just from a policy perspective at all.
No, conservatism is the collection of policies that we adhere to. Now, it has opened our eyes to some things that we forgot. We forgot for so long talking about free trade. We forgot that there's that guy out there and he's working at a carrier plant making air conditioners. And then suddenly a guy in a limo pulls up and he looks a lot like Mitt Romney and he says, "Hey, your job's going to Oaxaca." And the guy's 58 and he's a veteran and he's trying to raise a family. And what's our solution to him? Well, Milton Friedman thinks you ought to learn coding. Okay, that's not an answer. If conservatism has learned that there are consequences for what we do, and we have to address it in some way, we can't just hand wave away the consequences of our policies, then that'll be something important that we learn.
There's no question he's changed the face of conservatism dramatically. I think of two hypothetical images of a conservative man in my mind. One guy has got the tweed suit on, he's smoking the pipe, and that used to be the conservative that we understood. Now we got a conservative with a red MAGA hat on and a pair of overalls, and he's ready to go to war. He's ready to brawl, and he's ready to stand for what he believes in. That doesn't change the fundamentals of conservatism. For me, everything starts and ends with the issue of the sanctity of life. We have a pro-life president. We have a pro-life president, Donald Trump. Didn't used to be. We have conservatives in the judiciary. We have a conversation about America's sovereignty again. We have lower taxes. We have breaks for businesses. All those things are conservatism on steroids, and every bit of it, we ought to love every bit of it.
You know what? Michael and Noah and Kurt, I apologize because this is a lot of fun, but I see a teleprompter staring me in the face, so we got to wrap up. So here I go. Thanks again to Kurt Schlichter, Noah Rothman, and Mike Gallagher. In just a few minutes, Kurt, Mike, and Heather McDonald are going to be signing their copies of their books out there. Noah's book is coming out in January. If you have not picked up copies of their books, go do so in a few minutes. The next breakout sessions start at 4 p.m., and the locations and descriptions are in your program guide. Tonight, former Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark will be signing copies. He'll be here, baby. He'll be signing copies of his book in the atrium, and then at the same time, I'll be there as well. A bunch of people will be there as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hey, give these guys a huge round of applause. Give it up! Give it up!